The first time my mother asked me to lie on camera, my wedding portrait was 12 feet tall behind her. Someone had cut the image down the center, putting me on one side and my ex-husband on the other. Under it, in gold letters, were words I had never said. My family helped me divorce with dignity. Linda held out a script and said, "Just read it with feeling." My brother Caleb stood beside the camera with a release form. Across the studio, a compliance director from the company distributing Harbor's marketing kits waited to learn whether my family had permission to sell my face and my divorce story. The problem was simple. Harbor had not existed when I got divorced. My mother had told me not to come home, and my brother had shared my private messages with my husband. They thought I had come to record the authorization their distributor demanded. I had come carrying the first glossy brochure they printed with my face on it, the real invoice from my mediator, and every email in which I had asked them to stop. When the red light came on, I was going to give the camera the only version they could not license without me. Before I explain how my wedding became a sales tool for the two people who abandoned me during my divorce, tell me what you would have done. Would you have walked out, or would you have stayed long enough to correct the story in front of everyone who had paid to believe it? My name is Jenna Mercer. I am 36 years old, and I live in St. Paul, Minnesota. I photograph people for a living, mostly business owners who hate being photographed. My job is to help them look like themselves on a good day, not like a stranger wearing their clothes. I learned early that a picture can make a promise before anyone reads the words under it. A relaxed shoulder says trust me. A clean window says nothing is hidden. A family standing close can make you believe they are close, even if they argued in the parking lot 5 minutes earlier. My mother understood that long before I did. Linda Hale could arrange a room, a holiday, or a family story until every rough edge faced the wall. She called it keeping the peace. My brother Caleb called it good presentation. I usually called it easier than arguing. Caleb is 3 years older than I am. He can make a bad idea sound like an opportunity and an ordinary favor sound like a privilege. As a kid, he sold candy bars for school by telling neighbors he was raising money for children who had no playground. We already had a playground. He just knew guilt worked better than chocolate. My father, Robert, left when I was 16. There was no dramatic affair or secret second family. He and Mom had spent years turning every dinner into a hearing about who had failed whom. One Sunday, he packed 2 suitcases, kissed the top of my head, and moved into an apartment near Duluth. Mom told everyone he had abandoned us. Dad told me he had run out of ways to stay without becoming cruel. I believed both of them, which was the beginning of my habit of standing in the middle and getting blamed from both sides. Caleb chose Mom. He became the man of the house before anyone asked him to. He handled bills, fixed loose cabinet doors, and learned exactly when to agree with Linda. I tried to keep a relationship with Dad, but every phone call became evidence in a case I never wanted to try. By the time I left for college, I knew how to delete a sentence from a conversation before saying it. I knew how to apologize for tension I had not created. I knew how to smile for a picture while calculating how quickly I could get to my car. Photography gave me a place where details mattered without becoming weapons. I studied visual communication in Minneapolis, assisted wedding photographers on weekends, and built a small brand studio after graduation. By 28, I rented 2 bright rooms above a bakery and had enough regular clients to stop checking my bank balance every morning. That was when I met Owen Mercer. He managed a neighborhood restaurant and had the rare ability to make a busy room feel less noisy. He remembered servers, birthdays, carried groceries for the woman upstairs, and never made me guess whether he wanted to see me again. We married the summer I turned 29. The ceremony was in an old brick greenhouse by the river. Paper lanterns hung over the tables, and my friend Nora photographed us under an arch of white branches. In my favorite image, Owen was laughing at something I had whispered. I was looking at him like there was no camera in the room. Mom cried during the vows. Caleb gave a funny toast about finally approving one of my decisions. Dad stood near the back and left before dessert because Linda had seated him beside a speaker and across from a woman he had dated after the divorce. The pictures looked warm. They were warm. That is the part my family later tried to flatten. My marriage did not begin as a fraud just because it ended. Owen and I loved each other. We also carried habits into that house that love did not know how to fix. Owen handled conflict by leaving the room. I handled it by making my needs smaller until I could pretend there was no conflict. At first, that combination looked peaceful. Then his restaurant changed owners, his hours doubled, and every problem in our home became something we would discuss after the next busy week. The weeks kept coming. So did the promises. He would call the contractor about the leak. He would transfer his half of the mortgage. He would stop using our joint card for restaurant expenses. None of those failures alone ended our marriage. Together, they made me feel like the only adult in a partnership built for two. I asked him to attend counseling. He agreed, missed the first appointment, and arrived late to the second. During the third, he said he felt managed in his own home. I said I felt alone in mine. We both heard the truth, but neither of us knew what to do with it. The night I decided to leave was almost boring. I came home from a 4-day shoot in Chicago and found rainwater spreading across the bedroom ceiling. The contractor had never been called. Owen was at the restaurant, and our joint savings account was short by several $1,000s because he had covered a vendor payment without telling me. When he got home, I showed him the stain and the bank statement. He looked exhausted. I was exhausted too. He said, "Can we not make this a catastrophe tonight?" I heard something in his voice that sounded exactly like my mother, not the words. The request underneath them, "Please make the truth smaller so I do not have to change." I packed an overnight bag and drove to Mom's townhouse. It was after 10, but her kitchen light was on. She opened the door in a blue robe, looked at my bag, and did not step aside. "What happened?" she asked. I told her about the money, the roof, and counseling. I told her I needed a place to sleep because I was too angry to go back. She listened with her arms folded. Then she said, "Marriage is not a hotel you check out of whenever the service disappoints you. I'm asking for one night. One night becomes a position, Jenna. Your father taught me that. This was not about Owen. It was not even about me." My mother was standing in front of the worst year of her own life, and she was determined to force a different ending. "I don't want a position," I said. "I want the couch." She shook her head. "Go home while this can still be private." I sat in my car outside her townhouse and called Caleb. He answered on the second ring, listened for less than a minute, and sighed. "You know Mom can't handle this," he said. "I didn't ask her to handle it. I asked her to let me sleep there." Owen S. under pressure. "Don't turn a rough month into a divorce." I asked whether I could stay at his apartment. He said his girlfriend had an early meeting and the timing was bad. Then he offered to call Owen and help him understand the seriousness. I said no. I said it twice. Caleb called him anyway. By the time I reached Nora's house, Owen had received a summary of everything I had told my brother. Caleb also forwarded 2 voice messages in which I had cried about feeling trapped. He later said he was trying to create communication. What he created was a new argument about why I had discussed our marriage with my family. Nora opened her door before I knocked. She put sheets on the couch, handed me an old college sweatshirt, and asked only one question. "Do you feel safe going back tomorrow?" I did. Owen had never threatened me. He was not dangerous. He was simply unwilling to face a problem until it became impossible to ignore. The next morning, I went home and told him I wanted a separation. Mom did not speak to me for 12 days. Caleb sent articles about the financial cost of divorce. Dad called from Duluth and said, "You don't have to prove the marriage was terrible to decide it cannot continue." That sentence helped more than all the advice I received that year. Owen and I used a professional mediator named Denise Ward. She was calm without being soft and direct without being cruel. She made us list assets, debts, and practical decisions. She did not ask us to perform grief for her. She helped us separate a life we had built together without pretending the building had never mattered. The process took 5 months. We sold the house, divided the remaining savings, and agreed that Owen would repay the restaurant charges from his share. There were arguments. There were 2 sessions when one of us walked into the hall to breathe. There was also a final meeting where we signed the agreement and thanked each other for not making it worse. My mother attended none of it. Caleb helped with none of it. When I asked Mom to come with me to the closing on the house, she said she had a committee luncheon and did not want to be placed in the middle. She was not in the middle. She was outside by choice. After the divorce was final, Linda invited me to Sunday dinner. The table was set with cloth napkins and the good glasses. Caleb brought wine. Nobody mentioned the 5 months I had spent sleeping in Nora's guest room and rebuilding my business schedule around mediation appointments. Mom raised her glass and said, "The important thing is that we are still a family." I looked at her and understood the rule. They would welcome me back if I agreed that they had never left. I was tired enough to accept it. I said, "Sure." That one word cost me more than I knew. 6 months later, Mom announced that she and Caleb were starting a business together. She had completed mediation training through a local conflict resolution center. Caleb had spent years in marketing for small professional firms and said there was a gap between expensive divorce lawyers and people who just needed help organizing the practical parts. They named it Harbor Family Transitions. Mom would handle mediation and family planning sessions. Caleb would run marketing, intake, and partnerships. They rented 2 offices in a renovated warehouse near downtown St. Paul and chose a logo shaped like a narrow bridge over blue water. The idea was not ridiculous. Mom could listen when she was not personally involved. She was organized, steady in a crisis, and good at getting 2 stubborn people to sit at the same table. Caleb understood how frightened people behaved when they did not know what came next. I wanted the business to be good. I also wanted their new beginning to prove that our family could move forward without examining what had happened to me. That was my mistake. I confused fresh paint with repair. Caleb asked me to take their staff portraits. Their budget was tight, so I agreed to do it at cost. I photographed Mom by a window in a cream jacket and Caleb against a brick wall with his sleeves rolled up. They looked capable and kind. In many ways, they were. A week later, Caleb emailed 3 possible images and asked which one I preferred for the team page. I wrote back, "Use whichever of the 3 headshots works best. Just credit my studio in the footer." That sentence would follow me for nearly 2 years. The Harbor website launched with my approved headshots, a simple description of services, and a page about Mom's experience surviving divorce. She wrote that family separation had taught her how easily pain could turn people against each other. She did not mention that she had spent 20 years telling the story as if Dad alone had caused every wound. I noticed the omission. I said nothing. At first, Harbor grew slowly. Mom mediated parenting schedules and household transitions. Caleb hosted free evening workshops at libraries. They referred legal questions to attorneys and financial questions to accountants. Clients liked that the office did not feel like a courthouse. Mom called me after their first profitable month. She sounded younger than she had in years. "We helped a couple sit through the same conversation without screaming," she said. "Do you know how rare that is?" I told her I was proud of her. I meant it. Caleb began asking for more photography. A picture of the waiting room, a close shot of 2 coffee mugs, hands passing a folder across a table. I charged half my normal rate because they were family and because their early invoices were small. Then he asked for one emotional image for a workshop slide. What kind of emotional image? Something that says a marriage can end without erasing the good years. I suggested stock photography. He said stock felt fake. I suggested an empty wedding venue, a packed moving box, or 2 rings on a table. He did not respond. 3 weeks later, I was photographing a bakery owner when she turned her laptop toward me. "Is this you?" she asked. On the screen was a sponsored Harbor post. The image showed Owen and me under the white branch arch at our wedding. Someone had cropped out the guests and placed a thin blue line between our bodies. The caption read, "An ending does not have to destroy the family that came before it." My hands went cold around the camera. The bakery owner looked embarrassed. "I only noticed because you showed me your portfolio last year." I thanked her, finished the shoot, and sat in my car with the post open on my phone. The image had more than 100 reactions. People had shared it with comments about peaceful divorce and mature families. One woman wrote, "This gives me hope." There was no name attached. There did not need to be. My face was visible. Owen's face was visible. The greenhouse, my dress, and the white branch arch were all recognizable to anyone who had attended our wedding. I called Caleb. "It's one post," he said. "The audience is local, but the chance of anyone knowing you is tiny." A client knew me. "Okay, one person. You asked for an emotional image. I told you to use stock." And stock feels fake, which is why nobody responds to it. This picture is honest. It is private. It was on your social media for years. That does not make it an advertisement. He paused, then changed tactics. Mom thought it would be meaningful. "It shows that you survived." She thought that. You know what I mean. "No, Caleb, I don't." He said the ad was scheduled to end the next day. I told him not to run it again and asked him to remove the post. He agreed, though he made it sound like a favor. The post disappeared that evening. I wanted the problem to be over, so I let myself believe it was. A month later, a white envelope arrived at my studio. There was no return address, only my name written in block letters. Inside was a glossy trifold brochure. The front showed a calm blue lake and the harbor logo. I opened the first panel and saw the same wedding portrait. This time, the center fold ran directly between Owen and me. When the brochure was closed, we disappeared from each other. Beneath the image was a quotation in gold type. "My mother and brother helped me leave my marriage without losing myself." The words were attributed to Jenna, age 33. I read the sentence again, then I looked at the next panel. It described a woman whose marriage had ended under the weight of financial stress. Her family had supposedly guided her into mediation, given her a safe place to stay, helped her protect her business, and remained beside her through every meeting. They had taken the outline of my life and filled the empty spaces with themselves. At the bottom of the last panel was a small photograph of Mom and Caleb smiling in their office. Above them, a headline read, "We built Harbor from what our own family learned." I called Mom first. She answered with, "Did you get the brochure? You sent it. I wanted you to see the finished version. Before or after you printed it, there was a pause. We only did a small run." "How small?" "Jenna, that is not the point." It was exactly the point. After another pause, she admitted they had printed 5,000 copies. They had already placed them in counseling offices, law firms, community centers, and employee resource packets. I asked who had written the quote. "Caleb drafted it from things you've said." "I never said that. You said the divorce helped you find yourself." "I said the divorce forced me to rebuild." "That is the same emotional truth." "No, it is." Mom's voice became softer, which was how she sounded when she wanted the other person to feel unreasonable. "The brochure does not use your last name. Most people will never know it is you. It uses my face. It is a beautiful picture. It is my wedding picture. And the message is hopeful." I closed my eyes. "You told me not to come home." That was one night. Caleb shared my private messages with Owen. He was trying to save your marriage. "You did not guide me through mediation. You did not give me a place to stay. You did not attend one meeting. We supported you in the ways we knew how. You are selling a version where you did everything I begged you to do. Mom inhaled slowly. This business helps people, Jenna. Must everything be measured by whether we handled your situation perfectly? There it was, not denial, not apology. A request that I trade accuracy for usefulness. I told her to stop distributing the brochure and remove my image from every Harbor platform. She said they could revise future materials, but throwing away the current print run would be wasteful. I said waste was not my concern. Then she said, "We are not strangers stealing from you, we are your family. That should make you more careful, not less." She ended the call by saying we all needed time to cool down. I did not cool down, I called Nora. Nora still owned the copyright to the wedding photographs. She had given Owen and me personal printing rights, but she had never licensed the images for advertising. When I sent her a photograph of the brochure, she replied with one sentence. "They never asked me." She came to my studio that afternoon. We spread the brochure open on the work table between us. Under the overhead light, I could see how much work had gone into the lie. The colors matched Harbor's brand. The gold quote had been placed exactly where a reader's eye would land after looking at my dress. Nora tapped the picture. "This crop is from the full resolution file." What does that mean? It did not come from social media. Someone had access to your wedding download folder. I knew who did. Mom had asked for the link after the wedding because she wanted to make a family album. The folder was old, but the password still worked. Nora sent Harbor a polite copyright notice that evening. She identified the image, explained that commercial use was not authorized, and asked them to stop printing and distributing it. She gave them 5 business days to confirm. Caleb replied the next morning. He attached my old email about the headshots. Use whichever of the 3 headshots works best. His message said Harbor had received broad permission from the photographer's client and had relied on that permission in good faith. He suggested that Nora resolve any misunderstanding with me. Nora stared at the email on her phone. He knows this is about 3 headshots. He knows. Then why send it? Because it looks useful if you do not read the whole thread. That was Caleb's gift. He did not always invent facts. He arranged them so the conclusion arrived before the context. Nora wrote back and attached the full email chain. Caleb did not respond. For 1 week, the Harbor website showed only the approved staff portraits. The sponsored post stayed down. Mom did not call. I began to think the brochure would quietly disappear. Then a bride named Elise came into my studio for an engagement consultation. She and her fiancé had been referred by a venue coordinator. We talked about lighting, family groupings, and whether they wanted a private first look. Near the end, Elise noticed a framed sample album on my shelf. "I know you," she said. I assumed she had seen my website. "My parents got divorced last year. Your family helped them." My stomach tightened. She pulled the Harbor brochure from her tote bag. The fold was softened from use. My wedding face smiled up at me. "My mom kept this on the refrigerator," Elise said. "She said your story made her think our family could survive." I did not know what to say. Elise continued before I found an answer. "Are you part of the company too?" "No, but that quote is yours, right?" I looked at the sentence my family had written in my voice. "No," I said, "it is." The room changed. Elise's expression moved from recognition to concern. She asked whether the brochure was fake. I told her the photograph was real and the story was not accurate. She thanked me, closed the sample album, and said she needed to discuss the booking with her fiancé. She never came back. That was the first time the lie cost me work. It was not the last. A corporate client delayed a portrait campaign after someone on its communications team found Harbor's website and assumed I had a financial connection to the company. A divorced father emailed my studio asking whether I offered private coaching. 2 people left comments on an old wedding post, praising me for sharing my journey. Every message made the same mistake. It treated access to my face as access to my story. I documented each use, not because I was planning revenge, but because Caleb had already shown me how he handled facts. If I spoke from memory, he would call it emotion. If I brought dates, screenshots, and the original email, he would have to find a different excuse. I created a folder on my computer called Harbor Use. Inside, it went the brochure photographs, the ad screenshots, Nora's notice, the full headshot email, and the messages from strangers. I also called Denise Ward, the mediator who had actually handled my divorce. Denise remembered me. When I explained what Harbor was claiming, she became very quiet. Did you sign any release for them to discuss your case? No. Were they present at any session? No. Did they refer you to me? No, I found you through the county directory. She offered to send a simple letter confirming the dates of our work and that neither Linda nor Caleb had participated. She warned me not to publish the details of Owen's side without his consent. I appreciated that. Denise was still protecting the process, even when my own family had turned it into advertising. Her letter arrived 2 days later. It was 4 paragraphs long and devastating because it was plain. Harbor had not referred me. Harbor had not attended. Harbor did not exist when the mediation began. The business had built its most personal story around a service it could not possibly have provided. I sent Mom and Caleb a copy of Denise's letter. I asked for written confirmation that every use of my image and story would be withdrawn. I gave them a week. Mom called 10 minutes later. You contacted your mediator about us. You contacted the public about my divorce. She did not need to make it sound so hostile. She listed dates. I knew what Mom meant. Facts felt hostile when they refused to support her version. She invited me to lunch at Harbor's office. She said we could resolve everything without lawyers or threats. I had not mentioned either one, but the words told me where her mind had gone. The office looked calm enough to lower anyone's guard. Pale rugs, blue chairs, a bowl of wrapped mints, framed prints of bridges and open roads. Caleb had placed a brochure at each seat. Mine was already open to the wedding picture. Mom began with intentions. Harbor had helped more than 100 families. Their clients arrived terrified that divorce would erase every good memory. My photograph showed that a happy beginning did not become meaningless because the ending changed. That is a thoughtful message, I said. It is still not your photograph or your story. Caleb leaned forward. We can compensate you. He slid a 1-page agreement across the table. It offered a quarterly payment for continued use of selected images and a short written statement. The amount was smaller than 1 full-day commercial photography license. The agreement also required confidentiality about Harbor's marketing process. You want to pay me not to tell people the quote is fake. We want to formalize a family arrangement. It was never an arrangement. Mom pressed 2 fingers to the brochure. You are focusing on language when the larger work matters. Language is the larger work. You put words under my face. Caleb said the campaign had become their strongest marketing tool. Then he told me something neither of them had mentioned before. Harbor had entered a content partnership with Clearframe Practice Media. Clearframe packaged brochures, workshop slides, and email campaigns for small mediation offices around the country. Caleb had included my wedding image and case study in a kit called The Family After Divorce. Clearframe had licensed the kit to 19 offices. For several seconds, I could not speak. You told me 5,000 brochures were local. They were, Caleb said. The digital package is separate. Separate from what? My permission? He said the partner offices used Harbor branding and did not identify me by last name. He said the image had become recognizable within the field. He said removing it at once would require recalls, refunds, and a new campaign for every licensee. My mother had called the use small and anonymous. My brother was now describing my face as a product distributed beyond the state. How much did Clearframe pay you? That is confidential. You put my divorce in the package. The package includes our methods, not your divorce. I tapped the brochure. This is the first case study. Caleb said the license money supported Harbor's staff and outreach workshops. Then he returned to the agreement as if the numbers had made consent a technical detail. I folded the paper and pushed it back. No, Mom's jaw tightened. Do not answer from anger. I am answering from ownership. Family is not ownership. Exactly. Caleb stood and walked to the window. If we pull the kit now, Clearframe can demand repayment. 19 offices have printed materials. This is not a switch we can flip. Then start the recall. We cannot build trust by announcing that our own family disputes our central story. You built trust by pretending your own family proved it. Mom said my name like a warning. Jenna, people can grow. I was not able to support your separation then. I understand more now. That could have been your story. What? You could have said you failed your daughter and learned from it. Instead, you wrote yourself into the part you wish you played. For 1 second, Mom looked hurt rather than defensive. Then Caleb turned from the window. This is not therapy. We are discussing a licensing problem. He was right about one thing. It was a licensing problem now. I told them they had until Friday to remove my image and notify Clearframe that the case study was disputed. Mom asked whether I was really willing to damage a business that supported her and my brother. You made my private life carry your business, I said. Do not blame me because it finally feels heavy. By Friday, the wedding photo was gone from Harbor's homepage. It remained in a downloadable guide and in Clearframe's online catalog. The quotation had been shortened to, "I did not lose myself," with no name attached. Caleb emailed that they had made the requested revisions. Changing a false quote did not create permission. I listed every remaining use I could find and copied Nora. The following Monday, Aunt Marcia called. "Your mother is beside herself," she said. "Did she tell you why?" "She said you are threatening the business over an old picture. It is a marketing package built around my divorce. She said they offered to pay you. That does not undo using it without asking." Marcia sighed. "Could you not let them finish the licensing term and change it later?" The phrase licensing term told me Mom had shared more with the family than with me. "Did she show you the brochure?" "No." "Did she tell you the quote is not mine?" Silence. I sent Marcia the open brochure and Denise's first paragraph. She called back less certain, but still looking for a compromise. Families like mine did not defend the wrong action directly. They defended the comfort of not confronting it. Cousins and family friends sent careful messages. They said Mom meant well. They said Caleb's employees had families. They said public conflict would hurt everyone. Nobody asked what it had done to me when strangers repeated a lie in my own studio. Dad called after Marcia contacted him. His voice carried the tired recognition of a man watching an old pattern reach a new address. "Your mother always believed a clean story was kinder than a complicated truth," he said. "Did she ever use your story in the business?" "She asked me for a testimonial last year." "What did you say?" "No." "Did she say it was connected to licensed materials?" "She said it was for a workshop." Dad paused. "Do not let anyone make you responsible for the cost of their refusal to ask." That was good advice. I still did not follow it right away. I had spent most of my life believing family conflict became dangerous when it became visible. The calls from relatives pressed on that old fear. Every message suggested there was a quiet solution if I could be flexible enough. So I made my mistake. I agreed to meet Mom alone. We met at a coffee shop near Camo Park on a rainy Thursday. Mom arrived early and chose a table in the back. She had no laptop, no brochure, and no Caleb. For a few minutes, she looked like my mother instead of a business owner defending a catalog. She said she was sorry the photograph had reached my clients. She said she understood why the quotation felt personal. She said Caleb had pushed the marketing further than she expected. None of that was the apology I needed, but it was closer than anything she had offered. Then, she told me Clearframe had frozen the Harbor kit after receiving Nora's notice. The distributor wanted proof that the person in the photograph had approved the campaign. They asked for one filmed statement, Mom said, not an advertisement, a simple confirmation. No, you have not heard what I am asking. I have seen what happens after I say yes to one thing. She reached across the table but stopped before touching my hand. You could speak in your own words. You could say the story is based on our family experience. You could even say we made mistakes. You want me to repair a permission you never had. I want to prevent a misunderstanding from becoming a recall. She said the video would be private. Only ClearFrame's compliance team would see it. I could approve the final edit. Harbor would retire the wedding photograph at the end of the current licensing term, and Caleb would destroy the remaining local brochures. It was a bad offer disguised as progress. I knew that. I also wanted the photograph gone. I wanted the calls to stop. I wanted one conversation where Mom admitted enough truth that I could keep her in my life without pretending, so I did not say yes. I said I would attend a planning meeting and decide after seeing the questions. Mom smiled with relief. Thank you, that is all I am asking. It was not all she was asking. It was simply all she needed that morning. That afternoon, Caleb emailed a calendar invitation titled Harbor Family Story Session. It was scheduled at a video studio 2 weeks later. The guest list included Mom, Caleb, a production team, and Naomi Bell from ClearFrame's Content Compliance Department. I called Mom. You said private. It is private. ClearFrame is the audience. You set a planning meeting. The first hour is planning. We reserve the studio in case you feel comfortable continuing. A decision had been arranged, so refusing would look like disruption. I told her I had not agreed to be filmed. She said everyone understood. Then Caleb asked for my clothing size because a stylist wanted backup options. I declined the stylist. He replied with a thumbs up. Nora told me to cancel. You do not owe them a dramatic final chance, she said. I know. Then why are you going? Because Mom said I can speak honestly. Nora gave me the look she used when a client insisted a dark room had plenty of natural light. Your mother thinks honestly means gently enough to preserve the license. She was right. I went anyway. Part of me believed that if I entered prepared, I could control the terms. That belief was not foolish. It was incomplete. Preparation does not create good faith in people preparing for a different outcome. A week before filming, a producer named Malik called about logistics. He sounded confused when I said I had not approved any questions. I was told the script came from your earlier interview, he said. There was no earlier interview. He became quiet. Would you like me to send what we received? The document arrived while we were still on the phone. It was 6 pages long. The first page described me as Harbor's founding family success story. The second listed answers in my voice. According to the script, Mom recognized the financial strain in my marriage, encouraged mediation, and helped me find Denise. Caleb had supposedly moved my belongings and protected my studio accounts. None of that had happened. One answer said, Harbor gave us a process when emotion made every decision feel impossible. Harbor had not existed. Another said, my mother never asked me to stay in a marriage that no longer worked. I had slept in my car outside her house because she would not let me inside. The final page was worse. After the emotional questions came a sentence I was supposed to read directly into the camera. I confirmed that I provided the photographs and authorized Harbor and its distribution partners to use my image and story in educational and promotional materials. Below it sat a perpetual media release. My name was already typed. The testimonial was not only a testimonial, it was retroactive permission. I asked Malik who wrote the script. The file came from Caleb. I assumed he reviewed it with you. Has ClearFrame seen it? He said ClearFrame had received a shorter draft. Harbor had described my participation as scheduled and voluntary. I thanked him and ended the call. For several minutes, I watched rain move down my studio window. Until then, I had been trying to stop them from using the past. Now they wanted me to create a new record saying I had approved it all along. That was the second major turn. I called Clearframe and asked for Naomi Bell. I did not accuse anyone. I said I was the person in Harbor's case study and needed to clarify my participation before the scheduled session. Naomi listened while I explained that I had not approved the wedding photograph, the quotation, or the script. "Did you sign a model release at any point?" she asked. "No." "Did you give Harbor the full resolution image?" "No." My mother had access to an old family download folder. "Did Harbor assist with your divorce?" "Harbor did not exist during my divorce." There was a long silence. Naomi explained that Clearframe required contributors to certify they held image rights and model permissions before uploading a marketing package. Harbor's submission said all releases were on file. Clearframe had never seen an actual release because vendors were allowed to retain their own records unless a complaint arose. Nora's notice had triggered the complaint. Naomi asked whether I had documentation. I said yes. She did not cancel the session. She said Clearframe would attend because it needed a direct answer about the image and the case study. Then she asked whether I felt safe being in the room with my family. I said I did. "What outcome do you want?" she asked. The question stopped me. Everyone else had asked what compromise I would accept, what damage I was willing to cause, or what payment might make the use acceptable. Naomi asked what outcome belonged to me. "I want the image withdrawn from every licensed package. I want the false story corrected. I want the record to show that I did not approve it." "Are you willing to state that at the studio?" I looked at the 6-page script. "Yes, but not from their version." Naomi agreed to receive my documents in advance. She asked me not to post publicly while Clearframe traced the licensed copies. That was reasonable. I was not trying to create a spectacle. I was trying to stop one. I sent the brochure, Nora's copyright notice, the full headshot email, Denise's letter, and the production script. I did not include private details about Owen beyond what was necessary. Then I called Nora. "I'm still going," I said. "Do you want me there?" "Yes." Nora did not take over. She stood where I asked her to stand. That was the difference between support and control. The night before the session, I printed the original email thread and Denise's letter. I placed them in a slim gray portfolio with the brochure on top. I did not build a dramatic presentation. The lie was complicated only because my family kept decorating it. The truth fit on a few pages. I also opened the original wedding photograph on my studio monitor. In the full image, Owen and I stood close under the white branches. There was no blue line between us. No slogan, no prediction of failure. Just two people who meant what they promised at the time. I had spent months avoiding that photograph after the divorce. Harbor had forced me to see it everywhere, but only in its altered form. Their crop turned the marriage into a warning and my family into rescuers. I printed one clean copy. Nora arrived with a flat archival sleeve and slid the photograph inside. She did not say anything sentimental. She checked the print for dust, sealed the sleeve, and handed it back. "What are you going to say?" she asked. "The shortest true version." "That sounds like you. I used to think that was a compliment. It is when you are not making yourself smaller." That night, Mom called 3 times. I let the first 2 go to voicemail. On the third, I answered. She sounded cheerful. She asked whether I wanted her to bring a different blouse. She said Caleb had arranged coffee and lunch. She talked about the studio lighting as if we were preparing for a family holiday picture. Finally, I interrupted. "Did you write the script?" The cheerfulness vanished. Caleb prepared talking points. "Did you read them?" I reviewed a draft. One line says you never asked me to stay in my marriage. I never forced you. That is not what the line says. "Jenna, scripts are starting points. You will use your own words." "Then why is my name on a media release?" Another pause. "That is standard production paperwork. Did you tell Clearframe I had approved the image?" I told them you were participating in the process. I agreed to a planning meeting. You knew why the studio was booked. I felt the old pull to argue every phrase. Instead, I asked one question. Do you still plan to use the wedding photo if I refuse the release? Mom's answer came too quickly. We can discuss that tomorrow. That was enough. I will be there, I said. She exhaled. Good, please do not arrive angry. I'm not coming angry. I was coming finished. The next morning was clear and cold. The video studio occupied the second floor of an old mill building beside the river. I arrived 20 minutes early with Nora and the gray portfolio. Naomi was already there with a colleague from Clearframe. She greeted me in the lobby and confirmed that she had received the documents. She did not tell me what conclusion she had reached. She only said the session would be recorded and that I could stop at any time. Malik met us near the soundstage. He looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry about the confusion, he said. You did not create it. He nodded toward the studio doors. They changed the background this morning. When the doors opened, I saw what he meant. My wedding portrait filled the screen behind the interview chair. The image was cropped exactly like the brochure, with Owen on one side and me on the other. The gold quotation sat beneath it. My mother was adjusting flowers on a side table. Caleb stood near the camera, holding a release form. They had seen Nora's notice. They had received Denise's letter. They had promised to retire the image, and they had made it 12 feet tall. Mom turned when she heard the door and smiled at the giant screen. It is impact, doesn't it? I looked at the blue line cutting between Owen and me. That is the problem. Caleb walked over with the release form. We can revise the background after the first take. I am not signing that. Naomi stepped closer. Before filming, Clearframe needs clarification about the rights attached to this package. Caleb's expression shifted. What clarification? I placed the gray portfolio beside the interview chair and opened the glossy brochure. The same fold divided the same photograph. This quotation is not mine, I said. The account of my divorce is also false. Caleb gave a short laugh. We adapted family conversations for privacy. Name one conversation where I said you helped me find mediation. He looked toward Mom. She stepped in. The wording condensed a long experience that is common in client storytelling. I was not your client. You were family. That is not a service category. The camera's red light was already on. Naomi had requested a record. Caleb noticed it. Why are we recording? Because Harbor submitted this session as proof of model authorization, Naomi said. We need an accurate account. Mom looked at me. You arranged this? You arranged the studio, the audience, and my words. I only asked that the truth be included. I handed Naomi Denise's letter. My mediation began in February. Harbor was registered the following January. Denise Ward handled every session. My mother and brother were not present, did not refer me, and did not pay for the process. Caleb crossed his arms. The business grew from what we learned as a family. I pointed to the brochure. It says Harbor gave me a process when emotion made decisions impossible. That is brand language. It is a factual claim. It is a human summary. It is a lie with good typography. Mom looked at Naomi. This family history should not decide whether Harbor can help people. The quality of Harbor's services is not the question, Naomi said. The question is whether Harbor certified rights it did not hold. She opened a folder and placed one page beside the brochure. It was Harbor's Clearframe submission. A checked box confirmed that all photographs, quotations, and model releases were on file. Beneath it was Caleb's electronic certification. I had never seen the page. Caleb stared at Naomi. That is standard vendor language. It is still a certification, she said. Mom looked at me. We believed your email covered the photographs. I removed the full email thread and read the sentence aloud. Use whichever of the 3 headshots works best. Just credit my studio in the footer. Then I placed the 3 approved headshots beside the wedding brochure. 3 headshots, One team page, not my wedding. Caleb pushed the papers away. You are turning a family misunderstanding into misconduct. You turned a family photograph into inventory. He moved beside Mom. We are discussing one image and a few lines. The underlying outcome is true. Jenna got through her divorce and stayed connected to her family. I stayed connected by agreeing not to discuss how you treated me. That is your interpretation. You called Owen after I told you not to. You sent him messages I trusted you with. I was trying to prevent a permanent decision during a crisis. And I was your sister. He looked away. Mom's business voice disappeared. I was terrified. When you came to my door with that bag, all I could see was your father leaving. I thought letting you stay would help another marriage end. You sent me back because you were arguing with a memory. I know that now. Then tell that story. She looked at the screen. People do not hire a mediator who failed her own child. There it was. Harbor was proof that her divorce had taught her wisdom instead of fear. My real experience threatened the brand. You could know better now, I said, but that starts with saying what you did. I was afraid of losing the first thing I built that mattered. The sentence reached the part of me that still wanted to protect her. It explained her fear. It did not give her my face. Caleb broke the silence. 19 offices bought that package. We owe refunds if Clearframe recalls it. Our staff depend on that revenue. He wanted the room to fill with people I was expected to carry. I looked at Naomi. Did Clearframe require a signed release before Harbor uploaded the kit? Harbor was required to retain one and produce it if challenged. Did they produce one? No. I turned back to Caleb, then stopped describing the recall as something I caused. He pointed toward the screen. That photograph helped people choose mediation. Does none of that matter? It matters. It still does not belong to you. I lifted the brochure. This was taken before Owen, and I knew how our marriage would end. We were happy that day. You turned the beginning into evidence that you rescued me later. Mom whispered, we were trying to give it meaning. It already had meaning. I removed the clean print from its sleeve. Owen and I stood together beneath the white branches with no crop, blue line, or gold quote. I placed it over the brochure. This is the image Nora made. Personal use. A memory, not a case study. Then I took out the one-page declaration Naomi had sent me that morning. It said I had never granted Harbor or Clearframe commercial permission to use my likeness, quotation, or divorce history. I signed it. The sound of the pen moving across paper was small. The result was not. Naomi dated the declaration and added it to the file. Clearframe is removing the Harbor kit from its catalog today, she said. Licensees will receive a recall notice. Harbor must provide corrected materials and account for the fees earned from the disputed asset. Caleb's head snapped toward me. You signed that before hearing our proposal. I heard your proposal for months. It was always the same. Let us keep what we took until stopping becomes convenient. You had no right to contact Clearframe. I am the person in the photograph. He turned to Naomi. This is retaliation. She answered a rights inquiry, Naomi said. Harbor created the inquiry when its certified releases were on file. Mom reached for my hand. I stepped back. We can stop using the picture after today, she said. Just record something about surviving divorce. You do not have to praise us. You still want the video. We need Clearframe to understand that the family story is not hostile. The rights question is already answered. Then do it for Harbor. I looked at the script waiting on the chair. No, Mom sat down. Why did you come if you had already decided? Because you asked me to put my voice beside the lie. I came to put it beside the truth. I turned toward the camera. My name is Jenna Mercer. Harbor Family Transitions did not mediate my divorce, refer me to my mediator, give me a place to stay, or protect my business. The wedding photograph in Harbor's campaign was published without my commercial permission. The quotation under my face was written by someone else. Caleb said, "Stop recording." Malik looked at Naomi. She said, "Let her finish." I am not a Harbor client, advisor, or spokesperson. I asked the company to remove my image. It continued using it. I do not authorize Harbor or any distributor to use this recording as promotion. I looked at Malik. That is all. The red light went dark. For years, I had imagined that speaking clearly would create an explosion. The room stayed ordinary. The lights hummed. A coffee machine hissed behind the wall. Mom stared at the full wedding photograph covering the brochure. Naomi closed the compliance folder. The removal is effective immediately. Any future package must use verified client material. Caleb stared at the folder as if it were a locked door. Mom looked at me. You made us look dishonest. I slid the photograph into its sleeve. No, I stopped helping you look honest. Clearframe removed the Harbor kit that afternoon. The 19 licensees received a recall notice. Harbor had to refund part of the licensing revenue and pay for corrected digital files. The business did not close. Nobody lost a job. The local printer destroyed the remaining brochures, and Harbor removed every image from its own site and workshop materials. Caleb also paid Nora a licensing settlement for the copies already distributed. She donated part of it to a local legal clinic that taught people what mediation could and could not do. Harbor posted a short correction. It said a family case study had been used without proper approval and that the company was changing its consent process. My name did not appear. It did not need to. The corporate client that had delayed my portrait campaign called back. Elise, the bride who left my studio, emailed months later. She had hired another photographer, but she wanted me to know she understood why I corrected the brochure. I appreciated that more than an apology for not booking. Caleb did not speak to me for nearly 3 months. When he finally called, he began with numbers. The wedding campaign had produced almost half of Harbor's workshop leads. Replacing it was expensive. Clearframe required an outside review before accepting another Harbor package. I let him finish. Then he said, I kept telling myself the message was true enough. That is what you do when the exact truth is inconvenient. I know. He apologized for forwarding my messages to Owen. He did not say he was trying to help or that pressure had clouded his judgment. He said he had betrayed my confidence. It was the first apology from him that did not contain an exit. I accepted it. I did not give him access to my studio, photographs, or private life again. Forgiveness was not a media release. Mom took longer. She mailed a handwritten letter in early spring. The first page explained her fear. The second defended Harbor's work. I almost stopped reading. On the third page, she wrote the words I had needed. I turned you away when you asked for safety. Then I used your divorce to present myself as the mother I had not been. I was wrong both times. There was no request after that sentence. No demand for dinner. No reminder that life was short. Just the truth, finally standing without decoration. I called her a week later. We met in the same coffee shop near Camo Park. She did not bring business papers. I did not bring the gray portfolio. Our relationship did not return to normal because normal had required my silence. We started something smaller. A phone call every other Sunday. Coffee in public. No discussion of my work in Harbor meetings. No photographs shared without a clear reason and a clear yes. Some people would call that cold. It felt honest. Harbor eventually returned to Clearframe with 3 case studies from real clients who chose their own words and signed clear releases. Mom told me only after the package was approved. I celebrated privately because helping people was never the part I wanted to destroy. The brochure stayed in my studio drawer for a while. One afternoon, I placed it beside the clean wedding print. The brochure made my marriage look like a lesson designed for someone else. The original showed what was true that day. Owen and I had loved each other. We failed each other later. Both things could exist without my family writing themselves into the empty space. I put the original photograph in a new album. On the first page, I wrote one line. What was true when it was true? Then I fed the brochure through the shredder. If someone in your family used your pain to improve their own image, would a specific apology be enough for limited contact, or would you close the door for good? Love can ask for grace. It cannot ask for your voice.